Coming up on AC 24/7, affirmative action goes before the Supreme Court, the arguments being made and how it could impact higher education. Plus, we're learning about the investigation into the crowd surge in South Korea that killed more than 150 people. Welcome to AC 24/7. I'm Stephen Walker. The Supreme Court hearing arguments in efforts to change affirmative action in colleges and universities. Challengers in the cases are targeting the University of North Carolina and Harvard University. The argument is that schools' admission programs violate equal protection principles and discriminates against Asian Americans. The Advocate Channel's Jessica Schneider has more.
Diversity, as important as it is, cannot come at the expense of Asian Americans.
These Asian American students are leading a fight against affirmative action.
It's time for Asian Americans to break up with woke diversity.
They're at the center of a lawsuit against Harvard, accusing the Ivy League school of discriminating against Asian Americans to make more room for Hispanics and blacks. Calvin Yang, who's now a sophomore at UC Berkeley, claims he was denied admission to Harvard because of his race.
It goes to show that there is a trend here, a trend where Asian Americans are systematically getting discriminated because of who we are.
Now the case against Harvard and a separate but related suit against UNC Chapel Hill is coming before the Supreme Court.
The current law.
Conservative activist Edward Bloom has been leading the crusade to end affirmative action for nearly a decade.
Classifying students by race and ethnicity, treating them differently because of their race and ethnicity, it's unfair.
Bloom started the group Students for Fair Admissions and initiated cases against Harvard and UNC Chapel Hill years ago. Harvard is accused of holding Asian Americans to a higher standard and capping their numbers, but the school says it sets no limits. At UNC Chapel Hill, some students say there's too much weight on race in admissions, resulting in discrimination against whites and Asian Americans. The school, though, contends it takes a holistic approach to admissions decisions. Multiple federal judges have ruled neither school has violated the Constitution by considering race in the admissions process. But now Bloom and his supporters are banking on the Supreme Court reversing its own precedent and banning the use of affirmative action.
I think that is something that has been polarizing, it has been problematic, and I think the nation is ready for this.
Julia Clark leads the group Black Student Movement at UNC, and she says race is an essential element for universities to consider.
We cannot have holistic admissions without race, because race is embedded into every single facet of everyday life for people that come from diverse backgrounds.
Already, 9 states ban the use of affirmative action in admissions decisions at public universities. But leaders at the University of California and the University of Michigan say their race-neutral admissions policies have not worked, telling the Supreme Court in filings they haven't been able to significantly increase enrollment of underrepresented minorities since affirmative action bans in their states took effect.
I know that certainly in California, there have been definite attempts to try and even the playing field in other ways, and they've had a limited impact. There's a chilling effect when students don't feel welcome, either by legislation or otherwise. They're not going to want to come to a university that has banned affirmative action, that doesn't value that diversity.
Now it's up to the Supreme Court to set the final word of whether affirmative action can continue.
I want to see affirmative action being repealed and become illegal in college admission system across this country.
I think I speak for myself and other black students that we really are scared at the end of the day.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, a Harvard alum, has recused herself from the case involving the school. She will participate in the UNC hearing. For the first time in history, there is an LGBTQ+ person running for office in all 50 states. A new report shows there is a record total of 1,665 individuals running across the United States for various positions. The report released by the LGBTQ Victory Fund also shows increased diversity amongst the candidates. The new number is almost a 6% jump from 2020, and LGBTQ+ candidates of colour account for 38.2% of all candidates. Brazil has a new president. Luiz Lula da Silva defeated his incumbent right-wing opponent Jair Bolsonaro. The Advocate Channel's Paula Newton reports more from São Paulo.
Supporters partied like it was 2003, the last time Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva was swept into power and promised to transform Brazil for a new century. He is now pledging to do it again. These women, just babies when Lula was first elected, hail him now as their political savior.
Happiness. So happy.
So happy. We couldn't take any more Bolsonaro. We can dream again.
Lula cemented an improbable political comeback destined now for the history books. He walked out of prison less than 3 years ago, appealing corruption convictions. After they were thrown out, he mounted a campaign to defeat conservative populist Jair Bolsonaro.
I consider myself a person who's been resurrected in Brazilian politics because they tried to bury me alive, and I'm here.
A gratified Lula pledged Brazil is back for its citizens and the world.
From January 1st, 2023, I will govern for 215 million Brazilians, and not just those who voted for me. They are not two Brazils. We are one country, one people, one great nation.
Lula supporters flooded the streets of Sao Paulo, relishing a fresh start.
Despite this victory, uniting this country now will be difficult and quite a challenge for Lula, as he also considers a very determined opposition.
Bolsonaro did not formally concede on election night. The last time Brazilians saw their president was when he voted. But even the head of Brazil's Congress, a Bolsonaro ally, allowed Lula supporters their victory, saying Congress accepted the outcome. This Lula supporter says the war, in her words, the culture war that Bolsonaro leaned into, is not over.
Look at the amount of votes this man had. Even after everything he's done, almost half of the votes, the difference was really small.
This is Lula's victory, but no longer Lula's Brazil. Years of division and political acrimony have taken their toll, blindsiding this democracy, and it could yet challenge this president like never before. Paula Newton, CNN, Sao Paulo.
Kanye West says he feels like God is humbling him. The rapper spoke during a rambling 16-minute video posted on YouTube Saturday. Kanye did not apologize but did try to distance himself from any hate group and claimed any act of hate against a Jewish person should not be associated with him. Still, anti-Semitic demonstrators referenced West's comments during a protest in LA and Jacksonville. West also claimed that he knows what it feels like to have a knee on his neck and compared himself to Emmett Till. In the capital of South Korea, more than 150 people are dead, some of them crushed during a Halloween event. The Advocates Channel's Mike Valerio has more on what happened, and we want to warn you some images may be graphic or disturbing.
Shock and grief in Seoul, South Korea, after more than 150 people are dead and more than 100 injured following a chaotic apparent crowd surge. Officials say tens of thousands of partygoers had gathered there for a Halloween celebration, but many of them were crushed when partygoers packed tightly into narrow streets.
People were really crowded from there to here. Besides the people who were already stuck inside, some people were looking at the others and just faint.
Officials say most of those killed were people in their 20s and 30s. Among the dead are at least 24 foreign nationals, including 2 Americans. The U.S. ambassador to the Republic of Korea saying in a statement, quote, "I am deeply saddened by the loss of so many lives last night," to include 2 young Americans celebrating alongside their Korean friends and others from around the world. U.S. President Joe Biden offering his deepest condolences and support in a tweet, saying, quote, "The United States stands with the Republic of Korea during this tragic time." Investigators are still trying to figure out the exact cause of the crush. South Korea's president declaring a national period of mourning as a memorial for the victims continues to grow at the scene. I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
Fans of the hit show Manifest are going to get the ending they deserve. Its final season is streaming on Netflix. The Advocates channel, David Daniel, has more.
You've all been missing, presumed dead for 5.5 years.
Manifest was presumed dead until fans helped bring the show back for a fourth and final season.
I was walking up and down the halls of our stages and I was just thinking, like, this doesn't feel done.
Must be a sign.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Show creator Jeff Rake broke the news to the cast on a group chat.
It was one of the best days of my life. It was definitely the best day of my professional life.
It was just blowing up. Like, we were like, what is going on? What are we doing?
It was just like a play-by-play. I mean, we're very lucky to have a showrunner that keeps us in the loop.
We have to follow every lead.
It was a dream come true to be able to come back, and we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wasn't for the fans and the love and the incredible appreciation they have shown since day one for us.
What an unbelievable up and down journey. And it just doesn't happen anymore. And it's not lost on any of us how lucky we are.
We didn't fly into the storm. It flew into us. It chose us.
A direct link to divine consciousness.
Just nothing but gratitude that we got to come back and finish the story.
A28 wasn't an accident. We're supposed to save the passengers together.
I feel very lucky to be able to keep telling that story, but also to just like forge these relationships that I've been so lucky to make.
I am enormously grateful to like the fans in that campaign and everything that's happened.
Whatever happens, we'll get through it together.
Waiting for a calling in Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
The DC superhero film Black Adam is holding on to its #1 spot at the box office. The movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson added more than $27 million in ticket sales, bringing its domestic total to $111 million. It has earned $250 million worldwide. Johnson spent a decade trying to bring the character to the big screen. A sequel has not officially been greenlit. Ticket to Paradise was a close second with $11 million. Pray for the Devil, Smile and Halloween Ends round up the top 5. Thank you for joining us for AC 24/7. For content that advocates for you, go to advocatechannel.com, follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. For the Advocate Channel, I'm Stephen Walker.